Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Xony, and today we're going to have some more stories from Reddit. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further, let's go. Now let's get into the second story. I 29 male have been married to my wife 30 female for almost 3 years, and before everything went to hell, it was the happiest time of my life. We were together for 2 years before we got married and I fell headfirst in love with her. All of her friends loved me when we first met. I was brought into their friend group pretty easily and everything felt very natural. My girlfriend would talk about a friend from high school from time to time who was in the military, we'll call him Ben. She told me that they were best friends when they were in high school and they had stayed in touch with each other over the years. I didn't get to meet him until my wedding day. My wife invited him and his wife to the wedding, not even sure if they would make it or not. He ended up cashing in a few days of his leave to attend the wedding because my wife meant so much to him. I was a little annoyed that he did that. I didn't care much about having a big wedding or making a huge statement about it being my day or anything, but when Ben walked into the venue he kind of stole the show. Everybody from my girlfriend's side of the family was clamoring over him throughout the entire reception. It almost felt like the wedding that I paid thousands of dollars for didn't mean as much as Ben coming home for the weekend. It felt like my wife even spent the majority of our wedding reception catching up with Ben. I tried not to let it bother me. I knew that he was an old friend that she hadn't seen in a while and that was it. She had never given me any reason to think anything differently. Ben left the following Sunday and my wife and I went on her honeymoon. The first couple of days we were gone were fantastic. I was happier than I had ever been and I felt like the luckiest man in the world. Then she started talking about Ben again. He texted her over some pictures that he had taken at the wedding. Most of them were selfies he'd taken of both of them together. She kept showing them to me and talking about how happy she was to have seen him at the wedding. After she started telling me about all the crazy stories Ben told her while they spent all that time catching up, I was annoyed, so I ended up leaving after a while to try and forget about it by spending some time at the pool. I don't even think she noticed that I was annoyed. After about an hour, I went back upstairs to our hotel room and my wife was naked in front of the mirror. I asked her what she was doing and she just told me that she was changing into a swimsuit to meet me outside. After that incident during honeymoon, everything else went smoothly. We got back home and into the rhythm of our daily married life pretty quickly. I knew that my wife was talking to Ben a lot more after we returned. When I asked her about what they talked about, she said they had friendly conversations about nothing at all. Again, I didn't have much reason not to trust her, so I believed it. I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit jealous of the attention she was giving him, but she married me and not him. I tried not to let it bother me. A couple of years passed and I've gotten used to hearing about Ben once or twice a week in my life. They would text each other and tag each other in memes on Facebook and things like that. As far as I was aware, they never really talked on the phone or video chatted, so it all seemed entirely platonic. I guess an important thing to note as well is that Ben was married. He married his high school sweetheart right out of college before he went into the service. I knew that my wife didn't like her at all because she was a bit of a mean girl in high school. One day my wife and I were both home and hanging out around the house when someone knocked on our door. Neither of us was expecting anyone. We thought that if anything it was probably some canvassers trying to sign us up for voter registrations or something. I opened the door and I saw Ben standing there. My wife was on the couch behind me, looking over my shoulder to see who was there. When she saw Ben, she leaped out of her seat and ran to hug him. He grabbed her in his arms and picked her up while she wrapped her legs around him. I wasn't okay with the hug. Maybe it was me being a little bit petty, but it didn't seem like the type of hug someone would give a friend that they described as being like a brother to them. Ben's wife was right behind him and she looked as uncomfortable with it as I did. Nevertheless, we invited them both in and we made them some coffee so we could catch up. Ben had apparently just returned home the night before, and the first person he wanted to see after his wife was my wife. My wife was all over him in some ways. Obviously, she wasn't sitting on his lap and kissing him, but she was very interested in everything he had to say. She kept squeezing his hand when he would say something, and I noticed that it was lingering a little bit too long. We said goodbye to Ben and his wife after about an hour. After they drove off, I asked my wife about what had just happened with Ben. She didn't understand what I meant right away, but I told her that she was fawning over him while he was there, which made me uncomfortable. She told me that I was wrong for feeling that way because Ben had just gotten back from the military where he could have died. She was just glad to see that he was alive and well. I told her that some of the things she did seemed a little conspicuous and I didn't like it. She got very mad at me for suggesting anything could have been going on, and she stormed out. I tried to get her to come back and talk about it like adults, but she just ignored me and left. I had no idea where she went. After a few hours, I was worried about her when she didn't come home. I expected her to drive around the block a couple of times, maybe take a walk through her Target or go and get a coffee, then come back. I tried calling her, but she didn't answer. I called a few of her girlfriends, the ones that I figured she would probably go to if she needed to rant about me for a while, and none of them had seen her. I called her mom and her sister, and neither of them had heard from her either. The only other person I could think to contact was Ben, and I didn't have any of his information. All I could do was wait to talk to her whenever she came home. She didn't come home until about 9 a.m. the following morning. She looked like she was hungover, and before she said anything to me, she hopped in the shower. I asked her about where she was, and she didn't want to tell me right away. I had a strong suspicion she was at Ben's house because she wasn't anywhere else that I called. While she was in the shower, I was in the bathroom with her leaning against the counter trying to tell her about how sorry I was. I hated being in arguments with her, and I didn't want her to walk out again like she did the night before. While I was there, a text message from Ben came through on her phone. My curiosity got the better of me, so I unlocked her phone to read the message. In the message, Ben was telling my wife to lie to me about where she was the night before. He wanted her to tell me that they went to a local bar together and went back to his house where she passed out on the couch. He said that he didn't want his wife to know the truth, so they had to be careful. He didn't say what the truth was, though. The further I scrolled back, I saw several exchanges of nude pictures and intimate explicit messages between them. It wasn't a far lead for me to assume they slept together. I kept scrolling through the messages, and I saw that their virtual affair had been going on for a very long time. It was happening before we even met. It seemed like they had hooked up a few times when Ben had been home on leave, and when he was away, they would send each other pictures and intimate. After my wife and I got married, things slowed down, and they both acknowledged it was wrong, but they continued from time to time. After he showed up to the wedding, my wife messaged him and told him how irresistible he was to her. There were talks during our honeymoon where he mentioned wanting to divorce his wife to be with her, and my wife mentioned how she wished he'd have said something sooner. And when I saw her naked in front of the mirror, it was a picture that she was taking of herself to send him. On our honeymoon, I was so furious. I had been right to be suspicious of Ben, and she made it seem like I was some monster who was trying to control her every move. She pointed the blame at me as if she wasn't the one having an affair with a married man. My wife had lied to me and betrayed me throughout the entirety of our relationship, and I felt like my world was turned upside down. I put her phone down after sending myself some screenshots of the messages, and I went to my office to try and figure out what I wanted to do. Divorce was the only way forward for me, but I wanted to do a little something else before. When my wife got out of the shower, she told me that the following day Ben's wife was throwing together a little welcome home party for him. I thought it was the perfect time to let everybody know how much of a liar and cheater their hero was. I played it cool until the party, not letting my wife suspect that I knew anything. When the time came, my wife got all dressed up, more than she ever had for me, I might add. We went to Ben's house where the party was. About an hour into the party, the house was packed. Dozens of people showed up to thank Ben for his service to our country. When I figured the room was full enough, I airdropped about 10 screenshots of the conversations I'd taken from my wife's phone. I listened to phones chiming in the room as they all got the airdrop notification. Some people turned and looked at me as if they were questioning what I was airdropping them. A lot of people opened it, and the attention quickly turned from Ben being a hero to being a cheater. Ben's wife got the airdrop as well, and she walked up to him and slapped him in the face before rushing away in tears. The party was almost silent when everyone realized that Ben and my wife knew what happened. They were all waiting for some explosion. My wife walked up to me and quietly asked me why I would do that to her. I asked her about why she would do that to me. Then I told her that she could expect to be getting divorce papers any day. So many of her friends and the people in town were there and got the messages. On top of that, they were being shared with a lot of other people. Practically half the town knew about the affair by the end of the day. My wife wasn't going to be able to go anywhere without getting stares for people. I was back home packing my bags, and she confronted me, once again treating me like I was the bad guy for finding out that she cheated on me. I wasn't going to have it, so I just packed my bags and ignored her as I walked out. We're divorced now. Thankfully, everything was so new in the marriage that we hadn't bought a house or anything like that. It was easy for us to separate from each other. Ben and his wife got divorced, and his wife ended up taking the house and most of their assets. From what I can tell through town rumors, Ben and my ex-wife tried dating for a while after everything happened. Things didn't really seem to work out with them because they broke up after a few months. I guess they just liked the idea of being together more than actually doing it.